The new student. The massive halls of Galactic Academy towered over the tiny figure walking through its entrance. Zira, barely 4 feet tall, clutched her books tightly against her chest. Her purple skin and large silver eyes made her stand out among the other alien students, but it was her size that drew the most stares. "Look at that tiny thing," a deep voice rumbled. A group of tall, scaly dracons watched her pass. How did something that small even get accepted here? Zira kept her head down and walked faster. She had heard it all before. Her people, the Lumini, were known across the galaxy for being small and peaceful. What most didn't know was that there was much more to them than met the eye. The classroom fell silent when she entered. Dozens of different alien species filled the seats, most of them at least twice her size. Professor Xenon, a floating crystal being, pointed her to an empty seat in the front row. "Class, we have a new student joining us today," the professor announced. "This is Zira from the planet Luminara. I expect you all to make her feel welcome." As Zira settled into her seat, she felt something hit the back of her head. A paper ball. Snickers came from the back of the room. She ignored it, just like her parents had taught her. "Stay calm," they had always said. "Never let them see what you can really do." But then something else caught her attention. A new student walked in, a human male with dark hair and serious eyes. The class fell even quieter than when she had entered. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. "Ah, James Chen from Earth," Professor Xenon said. "Please take a seat." The human's eyes locked with Zira's for a moment. There was something in his look, recognition. But how could he know anything about her? He sat a few rows behind her, and she could feel his gaze on her back throughout the lesson. During break time, Zira found a quiet corner in the courtyard to eat her lunch. She didn't get far before 3 Dracon students surrounded her. Their leader, Cries, towered over her with his 8-foot frame. "Hey, Tiny," Cries sneered, showing rows of sharp teeth. "This is our spot. But maybe we'll let you stay if you do our quantum physics homework." "I'd rather not," Zira said quietly, trying to step around them. Craz's tail whipped out, blocking her path. "Wrong answer, little one. Don't you know how things work here? The strong make the rules, and the small learn their place," another Dracon added with a laugh. Zira felt her hands start to tingle, the familiar energy building inside her. No, she couldn't lose control. Not here. Not now. She took deep breaths, trying to stay calm as they closed in. "Is there a problem here?" The human, James, stood behind the Dracons. Despite being much smaller than them, he showed no fear. Craz turned with a snarl. "This isn't your business, human." "I'm making it my business," James said calmly. He looked directly at Zira. "You know, it's interesting. I did a study on Luminaran history before coming here. Fascinating species." The Dracons laughed, but there was uncertainty in their eyes now. "Did you know," James continued, still watching Zira, "that the last time someone tried to invade their planet, the entire attacking fleet disappeared without a trace? No one ever found out what happened to those ships, or their crews." A heavy silence fell over the group. Zira stared at James. How did he know that story? It wasn't in any public records. Craz looked between James and Zira, his confidence cracking slightly. "Whatever. This spot isn't worth our time anyway. Come on." The Dracons left, trying to look like it was their choice. Zira watched them go, then turned to James. "How did you know about that?" she asked. James smiled slightly. "Let's just say Earth has been very interested in your people lately. We see things others miss." He started to walk away, then paused. "Oh, and Zira, your secret's safe with me, but you might want to check your hand." Zira looked down. In her stress, she had crushed her metal lunch container like it was made of paper. She quickly hid it behind her back, heart racing. As she watched James disappear into the crowd, Zira realized this year at Galactic Academy was going to be very different from what she had expected. And maybe, just maybe, She had found an ally in the most unexpected place. But one question kept bothering her. What did Earth want with her people? Hidden powers. That night, in her small dormitory room, Zira sat cross-legged on her bed. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the dark as memories of home flooded back. Control is everything, her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. She remembered standing in the crystal gardens of Luminera, where the towering crystals hummed with energy. Her grandmother, even smaller than her, had lifted an entire crystal tower with nothing but her mind. Our size is our greatest deception, her grandmother had said. The universe thinks we are weak. That is our advantage. A soft knock interrupted her memories. Through the door's viewing panel, she saw James standing outside, holding what looked like an ancient book. "Go away," Zira called out. "I brought proof of how I know about your people," James replied. "And a warning." Curiosity won over caution. Zira opened the door slightly. James held up the book, its cover made of shimmering metal with strange markings. "This is a classified Earth record," he said. 50 years ago, the human ship discovered something incredible about the Lumini. But before they could report it, he paused dramatically. The entire crew's memories were erased. Zira's eyes widened. That incident was one of her people's most closely guarded secrets. "That's not the warning, though," James continued. "Tomorrow, the Academy is announcing its annual combat tournament. And I overheard Cries and his friends. They're planning to force you to enter." "What? That's ridiculous. I'm half their size." James smiled mysteriously. "Exactly. They want to humiliate you. But I think," he leafed through his book, "this might be exactly what you need." Before Zira could respond, the Academy's warning system blared. Red lights flashed through the hallways. "Attention, studiants," a robotic voice announced. "Training simulation malfunction in CCTR-7. Caution, ADGuys 8. Screams erupted from down the hall. Zira and James ran toward the sound. They found chaos. A massive training robot had broken free from its restraints. It was advancing on a group of terrified first-year students, including one of Kraz's Drakon friends. The robot's eyes glowed red, its metal arms swinging wildly. The Drakon student was frozen in fear. "We have to help," James shouted. Without thinking, Zira stepped forward. Her grandmother's lessons echoed in her mind. Size doesn't matter when you can control the very energy around you. Focusing hard, Zira felt the familiar tingle in her hands. The air around her began to shimmer with a purple glow. James watched in amazement as tiny sparks of energy danced between her fingers. The robot turned toward her, its sensors detecting the energy buildup. That's when Zira did something that made even James gasp. She began pulling the robot's energy directly from its power core. The massive machine stuttered, its movements becoming jerky. But it was fighting back, trying to overload her with too much power. Zira's small frame trembled with the effort. "You can't handle that much energy," James yelled. "It'll kill you." But Zira wasn't just absorbing the energy. She was transforming it. The purple glow around her grew brighter, and suddenly, every light in the hallway exploded in a shower of sparks. In that moment of darkness, something extraordinary happened. When the emergency lights came on, the robot lay in pieces on the floor. And Zira was floating 3 feet off the ground, her eyes blazing with silver light, purple energy crackling around her like lightning. The Drakon student stared at her in shock. So did everyone else in the hallway. Zira quickly dropped to the ground, the glow fading. She started to explain, but James cut her off. "Electrical malfunction," he announced loudly. "The robot's power surge must have caused some strange effects." "Right, Zira." She nodded gratefully, but knew it was too late. She had exposed too much. As the crowd dispersed, James pulled her aside. "That's why Earth is interested," he whispered. "Your people aren't just telepaths. You're living energy manipulators." "But how did you?" "Stop," Zira interrupted. You don't understand what you're dealing with. This power, it's not just about energy. We can manipulate the very fabric of. She caught herself. I've already said too much. James looked at her with new respect. And something else. Was it fear? The tournament, he said finally. You should enter it. Not because Kraz wants you to, but because it's the perfect cover. Everyone will be so focused on your size. They won't expect what I can really do. Zira finished. A small smile crossed her face. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt a glimmer of hope. But as they walked back to her room, neither noticed the small drone following them. In his private chamber, Kraz watched the recorded footage of Zira's power display, his scaled face twisted in a cruel smile. Perfect, he hissed. Simply perfect. The tournament begins. The Academy's massive arena buzzed with excitement. Hundreds of alien students filled the stands, their voices echoing off the energy shield dome above. In the preparation room below, Zira stared at her reflection in the metallic wall. Remember, James said, standing behind her, they're expecting a weak Lumini. Use that. Zira nodded, adjusting the strange bracelet on her wrist. A gift from James. You said this will help hide my energy signature. Earth technology. It'll mask your powers until you need them. But be careful, James lowered his voice. I've noticed something strange. Someone's been tampering with the arena's security systems. Before Zira could respond, the announcement system crackled to life. Welcome to the 100th Galactic ACADENOI Combat Tournament. The crowd roared. First, MATC, ZIRD of LUMINAR, versus KRXTE Mountain. Zira stepped into the arena. The lights nearly blinded her. Across the field stood her opponent, a massive rock-like creature with glowing crystal veins across its body. Krax was 3 times her size. This will be a demonstration of pure combat skills. No wee pivons ela wee. The announcer boomed. Begin. Krax charged immediately, the ground shaking with each step. The crowd laughed, expecting a quick victory. But Zira remembered her grandmother's words. Let them underestimate you. Then show them the stars themselves bend to our will. Just as Krax was about to grab her, Zira moved. Not just stepped aside. She flowed like water, her movements impossibly graceful. Years of energy manipulation had taught her perfect control of her own body. Stand still, tiny. Krax growled, swinging massive fists. Zira danced around him, her small size now an advantage. The crowd's laughter turned to gasps of surprise. But she wasn't just dodging. She was studying. Every crystal vein in Krax's body pulsed with energy. In the stands, Kraz watched through special goggles, recording everything. Come on, he muttered. Show us what you can really do. Krax was getting angry. His crystal veins glowed brighter. Enough games. He slammed both fists into the ground, sending a shockwave across the arena. That's when Zira showed them something new. Instead of dodging, she let the shockwave hit her and absorbed it. For a split second, her eyes flashed silver. Using the energy from the shockwave, she launched herself forward. Her hand touched one of Krax's crystal veins. A tiny purple spark jumped between them. Krax froze mid-swing. His crystal veins flickered once, twice, then went dark. The massive alien toppled over, completely drained of energy. The arena fell silent. YNNER, ZIRD of LUMINAR. The crowd erupted in confused cheers. James smiled knowingly. But in his private box, Professor Xenon watched with glowing eyes that held something dark. Later, in a quiet corridor, James pulled Zira aside. That was amazing. But maybe too amazing. People are asking questions. Let them, Zira said, feeling confident for the first time. I'm tired of hiding. You don't understand, James looked worried. I found something in the Earth records. The last Lumini who revealed their powers publicly disappeared, along with their entire family. Zira's confidence wavered. What are you saying? I'm saying someone doesn't want your powers known, and I think they're here, in the academy. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered. A strange humming filled the air. Zira's bracelet started sparking. James? She turned, but he was gone. The corridor stretched empty before her. Then she heard it, a whisper that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Finally, a worthy specimen. The temperature dropped. Shadows moved where there should be none. Zira's powers flickered weakly. Something was suppressing them. Your kind has hidden long enough. The voice continued. Time to see what you're really made of. The floor beneath Zira began to glow with strange symbols. She recognized them. Ancient Lumini warning glyphs. But how could someone at the academy know? A figure stepped out of the shadows. Professor Xinan's crystal form had changed, now dark and pulsing with red energy. Don't worry, little one. The professor's voice had changed too. This won't hurt much. In the arena above, the next match was beginning. Nobody heard Zira's scream as the floor opened beneath her, dropping her into the academy's dark secrets below. The last thing she saw was Cries' face, watching from a hidden panel, his expression not of triumph, but of fear. I tried to warn you, he whispered. Some powers should stay hidden. Secret alliance. Darkness. Then pain. Zira opened her eyes to find herself in a vast underground chamber. Ancient machinery hummed all around her, covered in the same glowing symbols she'd seen before. But something was different. She could feel energy flowing through the walls, familiar yet strange. Beautiful, isn't it? Professor Xinan's voice echoed. His crystal form floated nearby, still pulsing with that unnatural red light. A perfect replica of Luminaran technology. It took us centuries to build it. Us. Zira tried to move, but energy restraints held her in place. The Watchers. Xenon's form shifted, revealing darker crystals beneath. We've been studying your kind since you first learned to bend energy. Such potential, wasted on peace. Heavy footsteps approached. Cries emerged from the shadows, but he looked different, older, worried. I told you we should have left them alone, Cries said to Xenon. You don't understand what they can do. Silence. Xenon's voice boomed. Your father failed to capture 130 years ago. You won't fail me now. Suddenly, alarms blared overhead. A familiar voice came through the speakers. Professor, we have a problem. The human. He's not what we thought. The chamber's main screen lit up, showing security footage. James stood in the arena above, his body glowing with a blue light that seemed to cancel out all other energy around him. Impossible, Xenon whispered. Not impossible. James's voice came from behind them. Everyone turned. He stood in a doorway, his eyes now glowing bright blue. Just highly classified. Earth's secret weapon, Xenon laughed. A human who can nullify energy manipulation. How long have they been breeding your kind? Long enough to know what you really are. James stepped forward. You're not studying the Lumini. You're trying to steal their power, but you made one mistake. And what's that? Xenon's form grew larger, darker. James smiled. You assumed I was working for Earth. He raised his hand, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of canceling energy, he redirected it. All the power in the chamber suddenly flowed toward Zira. The bracelet wasn't to hide your powers, James told her as her restraints shattered. It was to help you control what's coming. Zira felt it. Pure energy, more than she'd ever encountered, flowing into her. The ancient machinery sparked and hummed. Her eyes blazed not just silver now, but with all colors of light. You fool, Xenon roared. That's too much power for her size. Size doesn't matter, Zira and James said together. And then they revealed the truth. In a flash of blinding light, James's human form flickered and changed. He grew smaller, his skin taking on a purple tinge. Illumini, disguised as human. "My real name is Jax," he said. "I was sent to find you, Zira. You're not just any Lumini. You're the first in 1,000 years to carry the alpha gene, the ability to share and combine powers with others." Xenon's crystal form cracked with rage. The prophecy? No. Zira looked at her hands, now glowing with both silver and blue light. She could feel Jax's power combining with hers, creating something entirely new. "The Watchers have hunted us for millennia," Jax explained quickly. "They're energy parasites, wearing false forms. They want the alpha gene to evolve their own species." Cries backed away. "That's why my father disappeared. He discovered the truth and tried to protect your people." The chamber began to shake. Xenon's form expanded, shattering his crystal disguise to reveal a writhing mass of dark energy tentacles. "If I can't have your power," the creature that was Xenon roared, "I'll destroy you both." But Zira wasn't afraid anymore. With Jax's power combined with hers, she understood what they could do. The very fabric of space rippled around them. "Ready?" Jax asked, extending his hand. Zira took it. "Ready." Together, they began to glow so brightly that even the Watcher had to look away. The prophecy wasn't just about power, it was about unity. Two Lumini, working together, could do what neither could alone. They could rewrite the laws of energy itself. Above them, the Academy students watched in awe as the ground began to crystallize, beautiful patterns spreading like frozen lightning. Something was about to change everything they thought they knew about power, size, and the true nature of strength. And deep in the chamber, Cries made a choice that would echo across galaxies. He reached for a hidden console, ready to fulfill his father's last wish, to help the Lumini, no matter the cost. The real battle for the Academy was about to begin. The betrayal. The underground chamber pulsed with combined energy as Zira and Jax faced the monstrous true form of Xenon. But just as they were about to strike, Cries' voice cut through the chaos. "Wait, there's something else you need to know." He pressed his hand against the hidden console, revealing a holographic message. An older Drakon appeared, Cries' father. "If you're seeing this," the hologram said, "then the Watchers have finally found an alpha gene carrier. What they don't know is that the gene isn't just rare. It's a key to something they've hunted for eons." Suddenly, the chamber walls began to shift, revealing ancient markings that glowed in response to Zira and Jax's combined power. The Lumini weren't always small, the hologram continued. They chose to be, because size was the price of containing the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, the Unity Core. The creature that was Xenon shrieked, its dark tentacles recoiling from the glowing markings. No, the core was destroyed. It was hidden. Cries corrected, understanding filling his eyes. Inside the genetic code of certain Lumini, passing down through generations, waiting for two alpha gene carriers to meet, Jax finished, looking at Zira with amazement. But before they could process this revelation, a new voice echoed through the chamber. How very touching. Everyone turned. There, stepping through a portal of crackling energy, stood another Zira. "What?" The real Zira gasped. The new Zira smiled, her form shifting to reveal a creature made of pure light. "The Watchers aren't the only ones who've been watching. We are the Lightborn, and we've waited centuries for this moment." Jax stepped back, shocked. "The Lightborn are a myth. Like the Unity Core." The creature laughed. "Your people hid more than one secret, little prince." "Prince?" Zira turned to Jax, who wouldn't meet her eyes. "Oh, he didn't tell you." The Lightborn circled them. "Jax isn't just any Lumini. He's the lost prince, who disappeared 10 years ago trying to find others with the alpha gene. His royal blood makes the core's power complete." The chamber trembled. Above, students were evacuating the academy as strange lights filled the sky. The very fabric of reality was starting to bend around them. "The Watchers want to steal your power," the Lightborn continued. We want to help you use it. Together, we can restore the Lumini to their true form. No more hiding. No more being looked down upon. Don't listen, Cries warned. My father's message isn't finished. But the Lightborn waved a hand, and the hologram fizzled out. Enough stories. It's time to choose, Zira. Join us willingly, or... Suddenly, energy beams shot from the creature's body, wrapping around Jax. He cried out in pain as his disguise fully melted away, revealing ornate markings of Lumini royalty on his skin. Stop. Zira tried to help him, but her powers wouldn't respond. The Lightborn had done something to the chamber's ancient machinery. The core requires both of you, the Lightborn explained, but it doesn't require you to be willing. The Watchers tried force. We prefer persuasion. The creature's light began to fill the chamber, showing visions of a restored Lumini empire. Tall, powerful beings commanding the energy of stars. No more mockery. No more hiding. Your grandmother knew this day would come, the Lightborn said softly to Zira. Why do you think she trained you so hard? The core's power runs strongest in your family line. Xenon's dark form writhed. You cannot trust the light. They're worse than us. At least we're honest about our intentions, the Lightborn countered. The universe needs balance. Dark and light. Power and restraint. That's why the core split itself between two bloodlines. Zira looked at Jax, still struggling in the energy bonds. She thought about every time she'd felt small, weak, mocked. The power to change everything was within reach. But then she remembered her grandmother's most important lesson. True power isn't about size or strength. It's about the wisdom to know when not to use it. The chamber's markings pulsed brighter, responding to her thought. And in that moment, Zira understood why her people chose to be small, why they hid their power. Because sometimes the greatest strength is in restraint. She reached out, not to the Lightborn or to Xenon, but to the ancient machinery itself. And as her power connected with it, a third option revealed itself, one that neither the Watchers nor the Lightborn had seen coming. Above them, the Academy's sky turned into a swirling vortex of energy. The final battle for the fate of not just the Lumini, but the entire galaxy, was about to begin. And it would start with a choice that would change everything they thought they knew about power, legacy, and the true meaning of strength. True strength. The Academy's sky had become a swirling vortex of silver, blue, and golden light. In the ancient chamber below, Zira stood at the center of three powerful forces: the dark energy mass of Xenon the Watcher, the blazing form of the Lightborn, and the bound figure of Jax, the hidden prince. But Zira had discovered something in the ancient machinery, a truth hidden in plain sight. You're all wrong, she said, her voice carrying new authority. The Unity Core isn't a weapon. It's a choice. The chamber's markings began to shift, forming new patterns that none of them had seen before. Cries stared at them in wonder. My father's last message, he whispered. It's completing itself in the patterns. The hologram flickered back to life, but this time, it showed more than just Cries' father. Behind him stood a Lumini elder, Zira's grandmother. If you're seeing this, both figures spoke together. Then the time of choice has come. The core split itself for a reason. Not to be reunited, but to teach a lesson that took us millennia to understand. The chamber filled with ancient memories, images of the original Lumini, tall and powerful, commanding the energy of stars. But with each display of power, darkness grew in their hearts. Our ancestors weren't forced to become small, Zira's grandmother's voice explained. They chose it, because they discovered that the more power you have, the harder it becomes to choose not to use it, Zira finished, understanding filling her eyes. The Lightborn laughed, but the sound was uncertain. Pretty words won't change what you are. The core's power is your birthright. No, Jax spoke, his royal markings glowing. It's our responsibility. Suddenly, the energy bonds holding him shattered. The prince stood, his power joining with Zira's, in a way neither the Watchers nor the Lightborn had expected. Instead of combining their powers to grow stronger, they were doing something else entirely. They were choosing to let it go. Impossible. Xenon's dark mass writhed. The core cannot be rejected. But it could. The ancient machinery wasn't built to contain power. It was built to witness choice. As Zira and Jax's powers intertwined, their bodies began to glow not with the fire of power, but with the soft light of understanding. The Lightborn's form flickered in fear. You would choose to remain weak, to be looked down upon. We choose to be exactly what we are, Zira declared. Because true strength isn't about size or power. It's about balance. A new voice echoed through the chamber. Everyone turned. There, stepping through the glowing patterns, was a figure they all thought lost. Zira's grandmother. But she wasn't alone. With her stood others. Lumini of all sizes, some as they were now, others in their original tall forms. The core didn't split to be reunited, her grandmother explained. It split to offer every generation the same choice. Power isn't a birthright, it's a test. The chamber's machinery surged with energy, but this time it was different. Instead of raw power, it showed the true history of their people. The moment when the most powerful civilization in the galaxy chose to become its most humble. The unity core isn't in our genes, Jax realized. It's in our choices. Every day, every moment, we choose not to dominate, not to control. That's what makes you so dangerous, the Lightborn hissed. Not your power, but your refusal to use it. Exactly, Zira smiled. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She started to shrink even smaller than she already was. Jax understood immediately and followed her lead. Their powers didn't combine to create something bigger, but something far more remarkable. The ancient machinery responded, its patterns forming a new kind of energy field. One by one, the images of past Lumini stepped forward, each making the same choice again. With each choice, the chamber's power grew not in force, but in purpose. Xenon's dark form began to disintegrate. No, you can't just choose not to be powerful. That's exactly what we can do, Zira and Jax said together. And that's what makes us strong. The Lightborn screamed as its form began to fade. You're dooming yourselves to an eternity of being underestimated. No, Zira's grandmother stepped forward. They're choosing to be wise. The chamber erupted with a light unlike anything they'd seen. Not the harsh glare of power, but the soft glow of understanding. The ancient machinery wasn't activating. It was accepting their choice. Above, the academy students watched in awe as the swirling vortex transformed into a gentle aurora. Size began to mean something different to all who witnessed it. But this wasn't the end. As the light faded, Cries discovered one last message from his father, revealing a truth that would change everything they thought they knew about the future. Because sometimes the smallest choice can have the biggest impact of all. A new beginning. Dawn broke over the Galactic Academy, its light different somehow after the events in the ancient chamber. Students gathered in the main hall, their whispers filling the air as Zira stood before them. But she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Jax, no longer hiding his Lumini form. Cries towered behind them, holding his father's final message. And at the center of the hall, a holographic projection showed something remarkable. The true form of the ancient machinery, now transformed. What we witnessed wasn't just history, Zira addressed the crowd. It was evolution. The hologram shifted, showing the chamber's patterns rearranging themselves into a new configuration. But instead of radiating power, they now pulsed with something else, possibility. For generations, Jax continued, his royal markings glowing softly, the universe believed power was about dominance, about being bigger, stronger, more fearsome. He smiled. We were all wrong. Suddenly, the academy's walls began to shimmer. The ancient machinery wasn't just in the chamber below. It had always been part of the entire school, hidden in plain sight. The academy itself was a Lumini creation. Cries stepped forward, activating his father's final message. The hologram expanded, filling the hall with stars. The Watchers and Lightborn weren't our greatest threat. The message began. Ignorance was. The belief that power only flows one way. But the Lumini discovered something greater. The power of adaptation. As if responding to the words, Zira and Jax began to change. Not growing larger or smaller, but shifting between forms, demonstrating what they'd learned. Their bodies rippled with energy, but it wasn't about size anymore. It was about harmony. The Unity Core wasn't split. Zira's grandmother appeared, walking through the hologram. It evolved, just as we did, just as all life must. The students watched in amazement as the truth unfolded. The Academy's true purpose revealed itself, not just a school, but a sanctuary, a place where every species could learn the real meaning of strength. But then something unexpected happened. The chamber's patterns appeared on the hall's floor and began to spread, not with power, but with opportunity. The choice we made, Zira explained, wasn't just for us. It's for everyone. One by one, students found themselves able to shift and change, not in size, but in understanding. The gift of the Lumini wasn't their power, it was their wisdom. Cries' scales shimmered as he discovered he could adapt his form while keeping his strength. Others found similar gifts, each unique to their species. This is what the Watchers and Lightborn never understood, Jax said. True evolution isn't about becoming more powerful. It's about becoming more connected. A small voice finished. Everyone turned. There, at the hall's entrance, stood a tiny new student. But unlike before, no one laughed. No one mocked. Because now they understood. Size was just one way of being. The ancient machinery hummed one final time, and the hall transformed. The Academy revealed its complete form. A living entity, built by ancestors who knew this day would come. A day when all species would learn to change not for power, but for understanding. Zira walked to the new student, extending her hand. Welcome to the real Galactic Academy. Above them, the stars seemed to pulse with new life. The Watchers and Lightborn weren't destroyed. They were transformed, their eternal conflict resolved not through victory, but through evolution. But this wasn't just an ending. In the chamber below, one last pattern formed, a prophecy not of power, but of possibility. Because sometimes the greatest adventures begin when we stop trying to be more than we are, and start discovering all the things we could be. As the sun set on the first day of this new era, students of all sizes and species gathered in the courtyard. The Academy had changed, and so had they. Not bigger or smaller, not stronger or weaker, but different, better. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, other hidden sanctuaries began to awaken. Other choices waited to be made, because the real power of the Lumini wasn't in their genes or their size or their energy manipulation. It was in their ability to show others how to find their own way to evolve. Ready for tomorrow? Jax asked Zira, watching the stars appear. She smiled, looking at the diverse crowd of students, each now comfortable in their own unique form. Tomorrow, I think we're ready for something much bigger than that. The ancient machinery pulsed one last time, and a new pattern appeared. Not a prophecy or a warning, but a promise. Because in the end, the greatest power isn't in being strong or weak, big or small. It's in being exactly who you choose to be.